Yvonne Blake from Migrants Organising for Rights and Empowerment.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, thank you, Yvonne. Sorry about me being quiet. Nice to see you.
Yeah, no, it's, with technology. So hi, thank you for having me. And it was really good to listen to the previous speakers. And my name is Yvonne Blake, and I am the co-founder of Migrants Organising for Rights and Empowerment. We're a migrant-led grassroots organization in Glasgow, and all our members have lived the experience of the asylum system. And we campaign for asylum seekers' access to employment, education, decent housing, and to be treated with dignity. Now, a lot of the work that we've been doing, especially during the pandemic, is around providing food support. And during the pandemic, when the pandemic first started, the first week of the pandemic, we created a crowdfunder and we had a conversation with other grassroots groups like the Unity Center and No Eviction Network. And we started a crowdfunder with, I think it was £1,000. Each organization donated £200. And we have been providing food support to persons who are in hotels, and we've been providing food packages for £30 each month, and we've been providing mobile phone top-ups. Now, there's been a lot of talk around the people who have been left behind and about how reducing COVID, the pandemic. And one of the things I want to speak about is about the interactions that we've been having with asylum seekers who have been, as I would imagine everyone here would know, that Glasgow is a dispersal city for persons who are seeking asylum in the United Kingdom. Now, during the pandemic, the contractor, mayors, took this decision, that's the most nonsensical decision of all, to move people from their settled homes where they are sharing in 2-bedroom flats or 1-bedroom flat to overcrowded hotels. Now, in these hotels, there's no room for social distancing. It's extremely difficult for people to practice social distance. In addition, because people are normally have basically nothing to do but to stay in their rooms, it means that this has a devastating impact on mental health. It has a devastating impact on physical health and well-being. And as a result, it adds pressure to the work that we do as grassroots groups, because we're on the front line. And most of the, as I said, the people in our group, we're all people with lived experience. So it means that this vicarious trauma that is being repeated when we're communicating and people are telling us what is happening, this vicarious trauma is triggering to our volunteers as well. Another thing that emerged was that for asylum seeking parents, because asylum seekers are not allowed to work, and the places that people would go, like the Unity Center, the universities, the libraries, the churches, those places, as a result of the pandemic, those places had to be closed. It meant that families were no longer able to access educational opportunities. To this day, there are families who are using a mobile phone to access education. One mobile phone in a household where, I would say 4, the mom, the dad, and the children. And it is a mobile phone that has been used to access educational opportunities. Now, because asylum seekers are not allowed to necessarily have a bank account, it makes it extremely difficult for them to have a phone contract. So it means that from the minimum amount that they're given on a weekly basis, now that money, they have to dip into that money and add additional money to top up their mobile phones so that them and their children can access education. This has put tremendous strain, especially in relation to food poverty, in relation to the fact that families are no longer able to purchase the food that they would have purchased, because a lot of this money now has been diverted into ensuring that children and families are able to access education. Another thing that emerged from it was how the impact it has on the children and how devastating it was for the children. There's one particular example where we spoke to a parent who is disabled, and the parent wheelchair is damaged. However, because this mother is not, she's an asylum seeker, she's not allowed to access the she's not allowed to access funding to purchase a wheelchair. So it meant that she wasn't even able to go for a walk to the park with her children, even though her children were frustrated in this tiny one-bedroom flat, even though because her children are minors, they're young children, they're not able to go on their own. So her children were not able to, she was not able to take her children for even a walk. Not even something as basic as a walk outside to a park next door. This was denied on the very basis that because she was an asylum seeker, she wasn't able to access funding to purchase a wheelchair. To this date, she sits in her house, she's extremely depressed. Her children are depressed. She has no support. She feels she's frustrated. We have explored every possible option to get her wheelchair replaced, and we were told that because she's not entitled to PPI or whatever that is called, she's not able to get a wheelchair. Now, something as basic as that, to take your children for a walk, and I'm really emphasizing on this because I want the people, our parents here, and I heard people spoke about teachers spoke about, and nursery workers spoke. So I'm really emphasizing this about the impact that this has on not only the parents, but also the children, but also the impact, that the long lasting impact on the parent, that they're not even able to parent their children in the most basic form, that is to take a walk to the park. And I've heard a lot of people speak about, we are, it's really a difficult time for everyone. But what this has done, it has further widened the gap of the injustices, of the discrimination, because that's asylum seekers and poor families are exposed to. Another thing, I spoke about the educational impact. I heard teachers talking about the impact of education. Now, if a family does not have a device for their children to learn on, and if a family is not able to purchase mobile phone top-ups so that they can access the internet. Now we're talking about people, no one left behind, but these are families that were already behind. These are families that were never included in these grand plans, the new Green Deals and all these grand plans. These are families that were never included in these plans. And this pandemic has even worsened that. These families have become basically invisible. And it's only through support from grassroots groups that we understand what is actually happening on the ground. There's been quite a lot of funding, and a lot of grassroots groups, for some reason, have not been able to access these fundings, except probably a minimal amount, probably like maximum amount, like maybe £5,000, which is wholly inadequate, because that can barely purchase phone top-ups for a family. And this has to be repeated every month in order for children and in order for families to access education. Another thing is that social isolation and mental health decline has increased among asylum-seeking families. Because the mere fact that people doesn't have access to technology, it means that people are not able to maintain contact or connection with their families and their friends. It means that people are not able, the normal network that people would have access to, that has been stripped, that has been removed. People are no longer able to access these networks and these support services. Another thing is, a lot of food banks have been closed. So it means that families who would normally go to the food bank, access the food bank, they are no longer able to access the food banks. So it means that, and the children are at home all day. So this means that you need they need additional food. Now, without the food banks, the fact that the 35 pounds that they have to be purchasing phone top-ups, it means that when we're talking about hunger, when we're talking about poverty, this is a true reflection of what hunger, of what poverty is. We're talking about families that doesn't have access to mainstream benefits. We're talking about families that does not have access to employment. So my question then is, as a society, as the Scottish, as a society, a progressive society, we have logos, we have slogans, Glasgow welcome refugee, we welcome refugee. Is this a welcoming environment? And as I say, I do understand that a lot of people, we're all in this together, and I get that fully. But one thing I'd like to point out is that while we're all in this together, it's similar to the Titanic. All the people on the Titanic were on the Titanic together, but there are different compartments in the Titanic. And as a result of that, you have different access. And what I'd like the Scottish government and those who are thinking about supporting should focus on is not that we're all in it together. Yes, we're all in it together, but it's not about this rhetoric and constantly talking about how we support those who are left behind, or we support marginalized community. Is ensuring that the communities, the people who are already on the ground, how does those people are supported? Because we are the people who are on the ground already. We don't need someone who is far removed, the Scottish government, to sit in the Scottish government and tell us what to do or how to do our work. This is our community. This is not even necessarily our work. This is our community. These are our friends. These are people we communicate with every single day. How does the Scottish government, how do they value that what we bring to the table? How do they value our expertise? How do they value our knowledge? How do they value the organic community leaders? How is this being valued? I've been in a lot of spaces where, whilst we are called upon to have a conversation, we are not included in the decision making at all. Not only that we're not included, we are deliberately excluded. I've had several instances where we're deliberately excluded. And if we're talking about a better deal, moving forward better, every single person experience, especially people of lived experience, that must be paramount, and that must be at the table, that must be central, and it must be guided by people with lived experience, not experts who come with 20 PhD. That means nothing to us. You're far removed from our experience. It means absolutely nothing to us. And I'd like to end here, and if anyone has any question, I'm happy to take questions.